Hello, I'm Mystic Orange and this is video hashtag 660. So this is another Winx voice ranking video. I wanted to do this before I do my review video, to change things up a bit. And for this Winx ranking video for the voices, I'm going for the Pixies now. And just like the others, I'm ranking the voices from the Fox dub, Cinnalum dub, Nickelodeon dub, and Ray English dub. Also, when I mean Nickelodeon dub, I mean season 1 to 4, or because I am aware in the later seasons, the Pixies have complete different voices. Don't worry, we will get there eventually, probably in billion years. And for this voice ranking video, I will only rank some of them. Obviously, I'm gonna rank the ones that have voices. I'm not gonna include the baby pixies because all they do is they make cues and So I'm not including Piff or Glim in this ranking video. And I don't think Digit makes a voice cameo in the movies. So I can't, include her in the ranking. Maybe I will have to do a research to find if she does a voice in the movies. She does appear in the movies, but I don't think she ever makes a voice. I don't think she ever makes that interaction with the Techno. I mean, I think, Techno talks. I don't think Digit talks. We'll see. Anyway, let's get into this video. I think the first Pixie we're going to talk about is Bloom's bonded Pixie, Lockette. So Lockette is the Pixie of Portals, and we're going to rank her voices now. For Lockette, it was really hard for me to rank her voice because for the most part with her voice, they sound similar. So no matter if it's the Dubbin Brothers or 4Kids or whatever, they seem to have the same vibe. They seem to have the same, high-pitched cowardice vibe. I personally did think for the most part Lockette voice in all 4 versions was really annoying because how high pitched her voice was, and when she was scared it made things worse. Also for Lockette, I had to think 3 separate episode or part of the movie to really think about Lockette's voice. I had to watch season 2 episode 19 just to get both versions of the Fox's voice and the Ray voice. This is the episode where Bloom goes dark. And I think we get a lot of Lockette in this video where she's trying to help Bloom. And I think this is one of Lockette's biggest moments in the show. The second place where I needed to, really look into her voice was season 3, episode 17. I think this is where Bloom returns from Pyros and is in search for Techno. And it's that bit where Bloom is in the front yard with the sky. And Lockette voice is there, so I had to compare her Nickelodeon voice with Ray and 4Kids. I mean, she made a minor role here, but she made an effective role as well. And finally, I had to, in the movies, I had to look at the bit where the characters are in this tree thing and they're looking for keys. And obviously, Lockette has her big moment here. And honestly, in the movies, Lockette has a very big moment. So, I'm gonna compare them. So this is gonna make me consider where I'm gonna place Lockette in the ranking with her voices. So at first spot, I would have to put Nickelodeon Lockette. Like, I don't have any issue with Nickelodeon Lockette. I think, she has similar to the others with her voice. But, I'm not only ranking, the Pixies' voices, I'm, ranking the personalities with the voices. And I think we don't have enough with, Nickelodeon Lockette. I think her role in the Nickelodeon dub is the most minimal of them lot. So this kind of justifies my placement for her in this ranking. So Nickelodeon Lockette is at fourth spot for me. I think the third and second spot was really hard for me to choose. It was between the Ray Lockette and Farkas Lockette. But I had to watch, the season 2 episode of episode 19 really hardly about comparing, Lockette. And this was the decider for me. I had to put the Ray Lockette in the third spot and put Farkas Lockette in the second spot. I really had to justify this episode alone to really help me, place Lockette. I think Lockette did more help for Bloom in the Farkas dub. Like, Lockette didn't trust Avalon, who was trying to help Bloom. And Lockette was, right to not trust Avalon. We've had other characters not trusting Avalon before, like Techna didn't trust him. I don't think it's mentioned in the radar at all, like if Lockette is, suspicious of, Avalon. Like Lockette said to Bloom in, in the Focus dub, like she doesn't trust Avalon and, she was ready to, help Bloom out. At least that could have, helped Bloom question some things. But we don't get that in the Ray version, I don't think. So this kind of solidifies my thoughts on both the Ray version and the Focus version. So yeah, Ray Lockette gets the third spot and Focus Lockette gets the second spot. I think it's gonna be surprising, but I think the movie Lockette is at first spot for me. I know it's kind of rare for me to put like a movie character at first spot, going by my previous, ranking videos. And it's kind of understandable, like, for the most part, when it comes to the voices in the movie dub, like, it's not comparable to the other versions. However, I think Lockette's role in the movie is very strong. I think she really helps a lot with her, abilities with, finding the key. And I like her voice as well. I think it's kind of distinctive enough. And she has a sassy feel with her voice. Like Lockette calls out to the Winx for being, rude to her. Because let's be honest, the Winx were kind of rude to her in the movies. They were kind of a little bit hasty. So overall, this sums up my position. Movie Lockette is at first spot for me. Also, I kind of want to talk about this for a few minutes. I kind of had to, review the footage from the movie again. Like, so really think about the characters who were talking. And it comes to my attention that both Amore and Digit don't have a speaking role in the movies. And obviously Piff, because, she's a baby. So when I was about to do the research on Amore, I realized I can't because, there isn't a voice for her in the movies. Nor for Digit either. So obviously that's not in the plan anymore. But I do think there's a problem in the movie I just spotted. This is like the first time ever I've spotted this mistake. And I, recently did the, Winx Club Season 3 review, and I reviewed the movie. And, I've watched this movie like how many times? But I think this is one of the big mistakes in the movie. So basically, the Pixie named Glim, she has a speaking role in the movie. I think for me, characters like Glim and Piff aren't supposed to have speaking roles because they're babies. Like if you know the main series, both Piff and Glim are like, talking baby babble. So yeah, that's kind of a total mistake. Also, how come characters like Glim get to have a speaking role, but characters like Amori and Digit can't? Just something to think about. Anyway, since we can't talk about Amori and Digit, let's just move on to the next Pixie. And it's Muse's bonded Pixie Tune. Tune is the Pixie of manners. And just like Lockette, Tune has four voices. However, I do have strong opinions about the voices for Tune, given that I know about what happened with these voices. While I can say for Lockette's voice, her voice is usually similar throughout her dubs. I think everyone, does Lockette correctly. For Tune, I don't think it's the case. And we're starting off with Tune's worst voice, in my humble opinion, and that's the Nickelodeon Tune. She is at first spot for me. Oh boy, where do I begin? It's not only that, I feel indifferent about Tune's voice in the Nickelodeon dub. I thoroughly passionately dislike Tune's voice and the personality that Tune brings in the Nickelodeon dub. And this example comes from the fall special of Nickelodeon dub. Oh, I remember. I think whiles back I used to review the Winx Club Nick specials. I especially, reviewed the fall special, and I can tell you that's the worst one. They did season 2 dirty. And one of the reasons that, made me feel like season 2 was done poorly was, characterization of the Pixies, especially two. I feel like the creators who did the next special for the fourth, the fourth one, they really did not understand season 2 or the Pixies. They did not understand the Tune, and I hate it. Tune utters the words that she would never say. I feel like the people who did the Nick special just, gone off with the Tune's name and just connected with Misa. Her name is Tune, so she's connected to Misa, so they immediately think like whatever Tune would say would be all like music related. Because what she says to Misa in like when she first meets her is not what Tune would say whatsoever. So she utters the words to Misa, "You rock." Okay, those words aren't in Tune's vocabulary, no matter how you think. She's the Pixie of manners. She's supposed to be the uppity etiquette Pixie. I think the person who will say "you rock" will be like one of us. If you're someone who's hipsters and is all about internet slang, of course you're gonna say "you rock." Clearly, the creators, whoever did the fall special, did not have a clue what to do with Tune, and yes, I am mad about it. Pixie like Tune reminds me of characters from other shows, like with her personality. She's a bit like Rarity from My Little Pony, or Karina from Mimi Power. That's the personality that Tune needs to bring to the table. Not whatever Nick did for the special. The things that Tune will say, this is what I would imagine like Luna Loud from Loud House would say. I know I spent, about 3 minutes talking about it, but, I really hate it. So nevertheless, Nick Tune goes at first spot for me. At third spot, I would have to place the movie Tune. I mean, does she even barely count? I think she just made one line in the movie. At least she said more things than Amori and Digit, but still. But at least the things she said is probably believable. But it's barely anything. I mean, Toon says to Musa in the movies that she is proud of her, so I can imagine like Toon would say that. And obviously, it would be in her Toon uppity fashion. However, the movie Toon barely has enough personality to stand out from the others. So anyway, movie Toon goes out the third spot, and now we have the only Toon characters that I find acceptable. So that's Ray Toon and Fox's Toon. I think both of these tunes are perfect for Toon. Those are the pixies that I imagine what Toon will sound like, because she's a lady. She's all about high class, high status. She's all about being prim and proper, and that is the personality that both of these two pixies bring. Also, both of these pixies do have iconic lines that I can remember. However, at second spot, I would have to place the Ray tune. But I do remember one of her line that still sticks with me, which I find really funny. It's funny because it's kind of ironic. Toon is trying to be polite, but isn't polite in the scenario. And I think it's the same scenario where like Toon first meets Musa. So basically, she refers Musa's, pigtails as, headphones. She thinks it's a headphone. And so she tells Musa, oh, she loves Musa's headphones. It looks unique. Honestly, this is one of the funniest lines of in Winx Club. And I think it still sticks with me for this day. I think Toon is that type of person who wouldn't want to make mistakes like that, because for her that would be like a social faux pas for her. And then we lead the first position to the Fox's Toon. I think she's the best pixie, and I think she equally had the funny lines from the same scenario, but it's kind of different. I think, it gives the same ironic vibes, but, it's kind of subtle. So Toon says to Musa, she loves Musa's haircut. It's very unique. But while she's saying it, she's using the word and then you kind of hear the question mark in Toon's voice. It's the way Toon says it that makes it very funny. Like, she's not keen on Musa's hair whatsoever, but she's not trying not to be rude. I think both of the scenes from the Ray and the Fox's dub is incredibly funny. The fact that both of these dubs have done that. But what makes me place the Fox's tune higher above the Ray tune is because I think the voice actor for the Fox's tune, she does a better job at voicing her. You can really tell like she has a grand pixie with high status. She kind of has like a snooty vibe. You can really sense that with her. And I think, Fox's tune has more dramatic vibe to her, which I find really fun. It's fun when, Tune blares up with her, scolding at others for not, not, using manners. Like one of her, catchphrases is, don't be so rude. So this kind of solidifies my opinion on Fox's tune. She's at first spot for me. Okay, let's move on to the next pixie. This time we're going to talk about Chatta, the pixie of gossip, who is also Florida's bonded pixie. And she too also has 4 voices for her, as well as the personalities that these voices bring. I think I can, guess, which voices can go in fourth and third spot, and it has to be between either Nickelodeon and the movie Chatter. For me, for both of these portrayal of Chatter, they sound a little bit too soft for her. I feel like this is a similar situation with a Tune. The fact that Chatter is Flora's bonded Pixie, they kind of make Chatter sound like a mini Flora. Yes, she's excitable and extroverted, but her personality seems a lot more softer than the Ray and the Farkas version of Chatter. And I personally don't like it. I think the writers, need to understand like the Pixies have their own personality and it's different from the Winxes. I don't think she's as soft like Amore, but like her voice doesn't give like the energetic vibe that I imagine Chatter would in like Focus or Ray. And this is something that I always imagined about Chatter in both the original and Focus. I always imagined her like a tomboy. So I think, I personally think there are pixies that will be considered like the tomboy of the group. So Chatter, Digit, maybe Zing and Livy will be considered as like the tomboy of the group. Like Chatter, likes, talking about her adventures and telling stories to, Flora. She's not supposed to be like sweet and dainty. So that's just my thought on like how Chatter is, and I feel like the Nickelodeon version of Chatter is worse than the movie one. I think she's rather too soft, but I think for the movie Chatter, I think she has more lines for her. So I think I'm gonna place the Nickelodeon Chatter at fourth spot, while the movie Chatter as a third spot. I think at second spot I would have to place Chatter from the Cinnalum dub. I think you could say like her voice is distinct to the previous ones. Like you can tell she's a bit of a tomboy with her voice. And for the most part, I'm not a huge fan of like when Chatter uses some of the lines from the original. I don't think like the voice actor does a good job of like, reading her lines. Because I see that present for like the Cinnalum Chatter. I personally don't feel like 100% with Cinnalum Chatter. This only leaves the first spot to Focus Chatter. I think she deserves it. I also need to acknowledge the voice actress for Chatter also voices Stella, Darcy, and Murta. And I think I, ranked Stella voice really high from the Focus dub. And I did the same for Chatter, and I did mention a few times in the past, like, I don't like repeating the same voice actress. However, I think the voice actress for Stella, Chatter, Dorothy, and Murta, she does a great job at differentiating each, character she portrays. Like you can tell, like Murta is the raspy emo girl. Darcy has that deep, velvety, sexy voice. And you can tell the difference between Stella and Chatter. I think she does a better job than the, voice actress she does, like Flora and Amore. Like, if you heard Flora and Amore, you wouldn't tell the difference. Like, if you closed your eyes and heard Amore speaking, you'd assume it's Flora. However, with Chatter, I can't tell her apart from Stella because I think Chatter had like a nasally voice to her, which feels so different to normal Stella. I think for Stella, she's a little bit more bubblier in her voice. So I stand by my statement. Focus Chatter goes at first spot for me for that reason. Anyway, let's move on to the other pixies. The pixies that don't have the bonded fairies. So the next pixie we're going to talk about is Livy, the pixie of messages. And she too obviously has four voices for her. And like the others, each of the voice Livy has different personality attached with them. And at first spot, I would have to put like the movie Livy. There's nothing to write home about movie Livy. Like her personality barely shines through in the movie. I think the most notable about her in the movie is that like she's from the Pixie village, and she, along with the other pixies, noticed the Winx arriving, and she's excited to see them. At least it tells you, like, Livy is excitable. At least it tells you, like, she's observant. But I think it's barely enough to, get higher in the ranking. Anyway, at third spot, I would have to place the Ray Livy. Not only I'm ranking the voice of Livy, but the personality of Livy. And I think with Ray or Cinnaloom Livy, she has her own personality that I can think of. I think with a Cinnaloom, it stays faithful for the original dub. And Focus cut out some parts in the second season. And, there's this one episode that I can think of, like, the Cinnaloom Livy is a huge part of. And the Nickelodeon Livy, like, Nickelodeon did not even have season 2 of that scene. They didn't cover season 2, episode 7. So this scene only exists in the Ray dub. It does not exist in like Focus and Nickelodeon. And I do have feelings about that particular episode for the Cinnaloom dub. I personally did not like it in that dub. As a person who grew up with the Focus dub, I always, watched the whole thing. I watched it since I was a kid, and I think during when Believers came out, that is probably when I started to really watch the older Cinnaloom episodes. But I didn't just fully get into the Cinnaloom dub. I did have to watch season 4 first. I was kind of skeptical about Cinnaloom, and so there were so many moments in this dub that I found really weird. And this episode was one of those episodes that I think was really weird. And I think Livy is a huge factor in this episode because, she narrates the whole thing. I'm so glad Focus cut the whole Pixies out of that episode. Giving them the minimal role they deserve. They did not need to narrate the whole episode. I'm just telling you. Could you imagine the whiplash that this episode has on you? You grew up with the Focus dub. This episode, it was kind of serious, wasn't it? And then you turn into the Cinnaloom dub, and it's completely very silly. And it's kind of weird though, the characters like Layla, Bloom, and Stella, they gone through something very serious in Downland, and when you return to an episode like this, where the Pixies are being lighthearted and giddy, it's just a weird whiplash. Even in the Ray dub, the episode alone is very weird. You're supposed to take this whole serious, but the Pixies really don't make this serious. And I think seeing Livy the narrator of that episode really makes me put her really low at third spot. And that's the personality I get from her if it was for the Cinelume version. I'm sorry, I don't like this version of Livy. That's the personality that sticks in my head when I think of that version. I mean, at least she has personality, so she's higher than the movie Livy. But yeah. So at second spot, I would have to place Nickelodeon Livy, and I think she's one of the Livys that I find likable. And it's purely because of her voice. I think she sounds cute, but I think in the Nickelodeon Livy, it's a male voice actor, so her voice is gender swap. So I'm gonna refer to Nickelodeon Livy as male Livy. I'm gonna refer to Livy as he, him. I think, this is very interesting. I think Livy is one of the characters that it changes their gender, such as Digit and Zing. And I do like that for them because, for one thing, this makes the Pixies, in terms of gender, really diverse. Also in canon, I really like Livy's voice in the Nickelodeon version. I think he sounds really cute. I hope this doesn't make me sound like, oh, boy voices sound better or girl sound voices sound worse. That's not what I think. But I think, when you have a character like Livy and the genders are swapped and the voices are distinct with the male voices, it sounds really refreshing. It's like you're having like a bowl of sweets. You're getting all the flavors, but you get that one flavor that's very different. Like you get all the sweet flavors, like strawberry, chocolate, but then you get something unique, like a Coca-Cola flavor or a peppermint flavor. Like that's the vibe that this version of Livy brings. Also, there's one thing that I wish to add. You could say, like in canon, like in the Nickelodeon version, Livy has a male voice. Like you could say, this is coded as a gender transitioning, like a female pixie becoming a male pixie. You think this is similar to like how a real life person might do in real life, and I think that's a unique way to look at it. I mean, you can decide how to put it. I personally think that's one of the ways I can put it as well. Anyway, this makes me, solidify how I feel about the Nickelodeon Livy. I'm placing her at second spot. And at first spot, it has to be Focky's Livy. I know I put the Focky's dub all the way at the first, but I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. I think for the most part, Focus does a best job at, characterization of the Pixies and most of the characters in the show. They add a whole huge personality to these Pixies. And it's kind of present too. Like when I noticed the Pixies in the Focus dub, they each have like very unique personality. You could say like most personalities in Focus is exaggerated and that is its own flaw. I think that's typical for like shows in like Focus anyway. Like it's not just Winx Club. It's like Mimi Power or Pokemon. Like the personalities of the characters are ramped up. However, I don't see a flaw in this. I think this is applies to other American media as well, like in shows like Ben 10. Like everyone's personality is like so unique and diverse, and almost tropey in a kind of way. I think in a way this helps the characters seem distinct and unique from each other. They're not just bland. You could say like these characters are simplified to one singular trope, but I don't see that as a flaw. And if they are simplified to one trope, that doesn't mean the character can't be complex or move beyond their tropes. but at least it makes the characters interesting to learn about. So for the focus, Livy, I think they make Livy forgetful. I don't see this present in the Ray version or Nickelodeon. I think it happens every now and then, but it's more present in the focus version. Like she's the type of pixie or person who would forget things. I find her relatable because I can be like that. And it could be said like someone like Livy is autistic because she keeps forgetting things. I think it's a fun, personality trait that they add in the Focus dub. So again, like I said, I don't make the rules. Focus Livy is at first spot. Let's move on. Anyway, it's time to talk about Zing, the Pixie of Shapeshift. I call her the Pixie of Shapeshift. In my eyes, she's the Pixie of Shapeshift because that's what she does. I know that they reference her as the Pixie of Bugs, but I don't care. I'm gonna call her the Pixie of Shapeshift. So anyway, it's time to rank her voices now. And our first spot is pretty easy. I think you guys can guess which one I'm placing at fourth spot. And it's the movie Zing. I bet she barely counts here. I think she does make a voice cameo in the movies. Like, she has that one scene with the other pixies. She comes in to help, give some goodies to the fairies. When Althea was in shambles. And honestly, you can mistake Zing for any of the background pixies in the movie. That's how generic her voice is. So anyway, that is sorted. The other voices for Zing are a lot more preferable. At third spot, I like to put the Ray Zing or the Cinnalum Zing. I do like her voice in the that dub. I think she does a great witchy voice with her characterization. I especially remember her role in the Cloud Tower episode in season 2, in both of the episodes anyway. But I think, in comparison to the focusing, her voice isn't that stand out. It can be forgettable to understand. Also, for the most part, voices in the Cineroom dub tends to be really quiet, and this is really true for Zing. They're not as energetic or fun as the Focus dub usually. It seems like you'd have to give them Red Bull just for their performances. If they had higher energy in their voices, they would be higher. But and this explains my second spot with the Focus Zing. And yes, the first Focus Pixie that isn't our first spot. And I think she's a lot more fun than the Cinderly Zing. She sounds more chaotic and like a prankster of the group. I have a lot of fun of Zing referencing Earth movies or movies that Bloom gave her. And I think Zing makes a lot of references from other TV shows or video games. Even with her all the shape shifting she does, she references a lot of things like Spider-Man. So yeah. However, now at the first spot, it has to be Nickelodeon Zing. I think for Nickelodeon Zing, is that episode where in season 3, where all the pixies team up. I do like her, Zing's voice there. I think this is similar to what I mentioned about Livy in the Nickelodeon dub. Zing has been gender swapped, and I like it for Zing. I would say Nickelodeon Zing is also known as the male Zing, so I would also refer to Zing as he, him. And I especially like Zing's voice. I think he sounds really cute. I might be biased because of his voice, but also what he says in the Nickelodeon dub in that episode, I find really cute. Like he sounds like a pixie on a holiday or something, and he is like entering like a beautiful jungle. He's just describing the scenery. I don't know. It just gives him like a unique personality that I didn't know I needed. I bet everyone else might hate this, but I don't care. I really like Zing's voice in the Nickelodeon dub and the personality that he gives. And this is why he is at first spot for me. Anyway, let's move on to talking about the last Pixie for this video. So we're going to talk about Jolly, the Pixie of fortune telling. I was about to not do her because I thought, like Jolly did not have like a Nickelodeon voice, but I also remember like the movie exists and there's a Nickelodeon version of that movie. So yeah, we're gonna continue with Jolly. Because let's face it, in season 3, Jolly doesn't show up, and she doesn't obviously show up in the fall special. This is the only time I'll be referencing like Nickelodeon movie. I think you're gonna be surprised by my choices for Jolly though. Like I said before, I'm not just only like ranking their voices, but the personality behind these voices and the dub that they present these personalities. And honestly, it's the things I remember most about these characters. And I think you're gonna be surprised by my fourth pick for this video. Because my fourth choice, it has to be the Focus Jolly. Honestly, I don't have anything problem with Jolly in the Focus, but I do think her voice is rather generic. If you swapped her voice for someone like Livy, you wouldn't tell the difference. I think the main gimmick of Jolly is that, she can read people's fortunes, she can read the future. And I feel like the voice for Focus, Jolly, is rather too generic for Jolly. And at third spot, I had to place the movie Jolly from the Dubbing Brothers. Similar to Fox's Jolly, I also think she sounds generic, but I think she's a little bit more chaotic than the Fox's Jolly, which is why she's higher. I remember her fondly from the movie for her antics, and I do think it's one of the fun moments. I think in the movie, she plays into the role of like the jester, and she really does that really well because she's jolly. I think they add a little bit of like, oh, she's a Joker type of character, like Harley Quinn, because she's dressed like Harley Quinn, and I think that's a fun addition in the movie. And I don't think it's a problem either. I think the voice, however, it doesn't match that though. I think she's rather too sweet and giddy, which is why I'm going to explain the second position, which is the Nickelodeon Jolly. I think the raspiness of the Nickelodeon Jolly in that movie fit that role a bit more. I think this is a unique characteristic that they added in the movie, which I can, appreciate. And finally, our first part, it has to be the Cinelume Jolly. I think the Cinelume Jolly has a lot of memory for me. And I think, she's similar to the Focus Jolly. But I think Cinelume, this voice, fits her a bit more. She sounds a little bit more neurotic, concerned about what's the worst thing might happen. I mean, she sees the future, so she's thinking about the worst case scenarios, and that's the vibe that I get from the Cinelume Jolly. But also, I have a lot of fun with her in the Halloween episode. I think we had more moments with Jolly in the Cinelume Halloween episode than I did with the Focus. The thing that does stick with me from that episode is that when Jolly had an interaction with Misa and Mitzi, and Mitzi tried to pull a trick on Misa. So what Jolly did is made these pumpkins fly around Mitzi and spook her. I think that was really funny because Mitzi can't see the Jolly, but this is like one of the funny tricks. Also with the Cinnaloom Jolly, she reminds me of a lot of characters like who do fortune telling. Like for example, in the movie Encanto, she reminds me a lot of like Bruno. I wish the Focus dub didn't cut that part out of the episode because I think that was really funny. The only reason I think Focus could have cut that out is because of the Spider-Man that was in that scene. Because, copyright. So anyway, this gives my answer of which Jolly is the best, and it's the Cinnaloom Jolly. And I guess that's it for my ranking of Pixie voices. Anyway, it's time to end this video. I really should be getting back into reviewing Winx Club. So for the next video, I will be, reviewing the next episode. I did put a poll out for the next episode, whether or not I should, review this episode. I was planning not to, but that's the reason I put the poll out. So just in case if you guys really wanted it. It's the episode where like the girls find the white circle. But if you guys really want me to, review that episode, I can. It's definitely going to be up. So anyway, since this video's over, make sure to like, share and subscribe and have a lovely day.